Within your DecoNetwork account, there's many settings that can be configured, but one of the ones that must be configured from the start are the decoration processes, specifically the price tables. How much you want to charge anytime the customer or your staff uses the design tool, uploads artwork. We want it to automatically calculate based on the normal variables. For screen printing, we count colors. For embroidery, we count stitches. For most digital processes, we look at the size of the print. So, within the admin decoration processes, this is where we can turn on or off any decoration process. If we go into a decoration process, the general settings, this is where we can set the minimum, what type of files can be uploaded, if there's a restriction on the maximum amount of colors for something like screen printing or embroidery. Within the price table section, this is where we can create a price table. Now, depending on the decoration method, we have different settings. Standard pricing is not going to look at the size of the print. All the other versions are going to look at the size. What's common to do is an area size, so it's a range, but you also can do per square inch. If you want to charge a price for like a left chest versus a full chest versus an oversize, over here on the left we have our ranges. So a left chest is typically up to 4x4, up to 16 square inches. Maybe a full chest is up to 12x12, so 144 square inches. Everything that's larger is essentially above that is the oversized. So here I can control how many rows, or essentially how many size breaks we have. Then we have the columns. How many quantity breaks for the impressions do we have? And then something like, are we looking at the color of the garment? Are we having to account for an underbase? Something like DTG or screen printing might. Otherwise, no. We're going to just make it a flat like DTF. We always have an underbase. And then how are we calculating the actual size? Is it the artwork itself? Are we looking at like DTG would, where it's the amount of ink we're using? Or is it like DTF or HTV, where it's the total amount of media, the total amount of film or carrier? So we could base it on the bounding box of the graphic, not the actual graphic itself. So a digital process, again, you may be doing it based on the size. You may want to be then looking at, are we looking at the artwork or how much media is going to be used? Again, embroidery going to be a little bit different. Embroidery is going to be counting stitches. So the amount of rows is the amount of stitch quantity breaks. It's very common for the last row to be per additional 1,000. For screen printing, it typically counts colors. So if you do screen printing, you would set the max amount of colors, and then you're going to decide how you want the white underbase to act. Maybe it's you look at a 2-color design on black as a 3-color, or maybe you look at it as a 2-color, and then we have a $5 or a $1 charge extra, or maybe you just assume that it's always going to have an underbase. Well, by doing that extra charge, you can come down here. If you always have it baked in, just make it 0. So again, these settings are fairly straightforward. You just need to go into each decoration method and configure a price table. If you're on the premium or enterprise plan, you can configure multiple tables and set up contract price levels, which we'll go over in a second. But after you've done the price tables, screen printing and embroidery specifically, you want to come into the color palette and establish what stock colors, what standard colors you have. For screen printing, you have, a specific bucket of ink that's used to print that color. For embroidery, you have a spool of thread. We want to make sure we have that specific palette. We can import a CSV with our palette information, or we could add an existing palette, or edit one that's already in the system. Turn off colors that we do or don't want to offer. Within the artwork fee, this is where we can set what the fee will be when artwork is uploaded. For screen printing, it's very common to just charge nothing until we look at the design itself. For embroidery, anytime artwork is uploaded, And it's not already digitized, we're automatically going to charge a digitizing fee. So for each process, set the general, the minimum, maybe the max amount of colors, what file formats are accepted. Set up a price table, configure the colors that are available specifically for screen and embroidery, which are an analog process. Set the artwork fee potentially if there is one by default. And there's several other settings, but those are the ones that are most important and the ones that you actually typically configure. Once you've done that, you want to come down into the decoration pricing section, and this is where we can assign which price table we want to use for each process and each price level. So at the top here, you see we have contract price levels. If I come over to the product section, contract price levels, this is where we can define our different levels. That's all we do here is define what they are. And just know that this top one is the default. Everybody by default is level 1 retail. Nobody special until we say they are. But then within the decoration processes, I can choose which table I want to use for each price level. So here in the full color printing, I could choose, you know what, for level 1, I want to do DTG, but for level 2 contract, we'll use the one I just created. That way, anytime a customer who's on level 2 contract is putting together a quote or an order, or we are putting a quote or an order together for this customer, it's automatically using their pricing. We create the table, we map it to the price level, we then map that price level to the customer's profile. So for every decoration process, we want to do the same thing. Choose the table for each one of them. Something else to keep in mind, it's common to calculate the unit decoration price across all the line items using the same artwork. So you may want to be checking this box, determine price table quantity break using all placements of the same design. That is typically how you want to do it. There's many settings throughout DecoNetwork that can be configured. The decoration processes, specifically the price tables, are something that must be configured so you can start utilizing Business Hub and putting together quotes and orders ASAP. If you have any questions on how to configure the different decoration processes or anything else throughout DecoNetwork, simply come up to the top of the page, click on the search, and you will find many great help articles and videos. Anytime the help article or video doesn't do the trick, click on the question mark icon, raise a support ticket with client services, who is more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.